Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Welcome to our 5th episode of The Inner Voice. Sorry about the slight delay today, just a bit of a technical glitch, but now we're back online. Tonight we have 3 of our panelists, 2 who have been with us before, and all of you know. Sayyid Zishan Haidar Nafwi, who is our resident alim here in Mombasa. Sayyid, Assalamu alaikum, and welcome to the program once again.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you so much, Nazir Bhai, for giving us this privilege.
Always an honor. Our next panelist for tonight, Nishat Karim, as you all know, he's been with us before as well. He is a teacher at the madrasa, and he's also been very active in the community, especially on the youth front. Nishat, salamun alaikum, and welcome back to the show.
Wa alaikum salam, Nazir. Thank you for having me today on this very important topic of discussion.
The pleasure is all ours. Pleasure having you here. And our third panelist is new. His name is Muhammad Abbas Merali. He is a youth who is currently in Mombasa, but he was studying, or is currently studying at Brunel University in London. And Muhammad Abbas is majoring in computer science with artificial intelligence. He's been an active member of the sports and recreation team, and also in the media team in the Jamaat. He loves anything and everything to do with football and, of course, computers as well. Muhammad Abbas, salamun alaikum, and welcome to the program.
Wa alaikum salam. Salamun alaikum, everyone else. Thank you so much for having me.
The pleasure is all ours. So, our dear viewers, the screen in front of you, Islamic Parenting Today, 3 perspectives. We have the religious perspective by Maulana. Nishat Hussain will be the parent for this evening, and Muhammad Abbas will be filling in for the youth in general, of course, with his own perspective. Your questions and answers, any comments you might have, +254 702 100 130 on the screen in front of you, and we'll remind you as we go along. Maulana Sahib, as is usual, we'd like you to give us a brief on this topic, Islamic Parenting Today, and open up the discussion. Bismillah, Maulana, please.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وبه نستعين وهو خير ناصر ومعين الحمد لله بارئ الخلائق أجمعين ثم الصلاة والسلام والتحية والإكرام على سيدنا ونبينا مولانا بالقاسم المصطفى محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين أما بعد فقد قال الله الحكيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم يا أيها الذين آمنوا وأنفسكم وأهليكم نارا وقودها الناس والحجارة عليها ملائكة غلاظ شداد لا يعصون الله ما أمرهم ويفعلون ما يؤمرون صدق الله العلي العظيم وصدق رسوله النبي الكريم. If we look at this topic, the ayah that I have chosen very clearly is mentioning about the Islamic parenting. And that is ayah of Surah Tahrim, verse number 6. Where there Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala addressing the mu'mineen by saying, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu, O who you believe. Qu anfusakum, protect yourself, wa ahlikum, and protect your family members, naran, from the hellfire. وَقُودُهَا النَّاسُ وَالْحِجَارَةُ, its fuel is human being and stones. عَلَيْهَا مَلَائِكَةٌ غِلَاظٌ, these staunch and harsh angels are appointed upon the hellfire. La ya'sun Allah, and they never go against the commandment of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They are never disobedient to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Ma amarahum, whatever they receive the commandment of Allah. Wa yaf'aluna ma yu'marun, and they always do what they are commanded by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this ayah is very clearly mentioning the Islamic parenting and the responsibility and obligation that has been made by our religion upon us, that we have to take care our family and upbring them in the way we can protect them from the ma'siyah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And if you look at the ahadith, you find over there, for example, we have a beautiful hadith of our Mawla Amirul Mu'minin Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam. He said, Haqqul waladi ala walidihi thalath. There are three rights of the child on the shoulder of his father. One of them is an yu'allimahu al-Quran. He is supposed to teach him the Quran. And second is etiquette. The third is that he should give him the guidance of akhlaq and all that.
Well, Saib, thank you for that opening brief also, and the verse of the Holy Quran, which we've heard before. And it's a very strong ayah of the Holy Quran, which we'll get into a bit later on. But before that, you gave us three rights of children towards parents: teach Quran, etiquette, and guidance. These are the rights of the child. Could you elaborate on the rights of parents? Give us three similar ones as well for our parents. The rights of parents on children.
Rights of parent, or you mean the rights of parent on the children, or the rights of children on parent?
The first one, the first three that you mentioned, the rights.
Okay, Quran. Yes, rights of the children on parent. So number one is Quran. Quran, the meaning of Quran, not only to teach them how to recite Quran. When we say an yu'allimahu al-Quran, means teach them the teachings and the content, what is there, and the guidance that is possessed by Quran within it. So we have to understand the Quran to our children and understand them that this is the book of guidance, and there's no any other book is worthier than this book.
Okay, thank you for elaborating, Maulana Saib. Nishat, Islamic parenting today in the 20th, in this century, 2020, it's not the same as when we were growing up. As you're a father, and you probably know that there's a huge difference and a huge gap between what it is now and what it was, let's say, 20 years ago. What are your thoughts on the topic this evening?
Okay, so when we say about challenges when we were growing up and the challenges that our kids are growing up are pretty different. However, there are certain things that have always remained the same. It is maybe how circumstantially the environment has evolved. So for example, just to give you a very simple example, in our days, we did not have social media. That was not a challenge for our parents to worry about, you know. However, at that time, there were things like smoking, for example, was a challenge to our parents to ensure that maybe the children then did not fall into the trap of smoking. But today, we as parents are worried about social media and its impact on the children and how much time they spend on social media. So challenges have always been there. They have evolved with time, and they've evolved with our environment and our circumstances that surround us. So I think that pretty much says about the challenges. Do we want to go into those challenges now, or do we want to explore other things first, Nazir.
All right. What we want to explore is that, you see, parenting today, we all know time and again. I want to bring up something that we have brought up in the past in our previous programs. And we know parents are very busy today. Okay. We spend more hours at work. The world is a challenging place right now. So we tend to, for example, parents may tend to, and not all parents, but some parents may tend to leave religious upbringing to the madrasa or education to the school, secular education. Uh, where do you think where is the ideal where children should get a proper Islamic education? Is it just the madrasa?
No, absolutely not. I mean, if you look at the amount of time that the children spend with parents is enormous. I mean, okay, they might be at school and at the madrasa once a week, but the major upbringing of every child happens at home, and we as parents play a bigger role as role models. And I think we should all understand that children learn by imitating, not by being told. So when they look at us and how we behave and how we act and how we portray ourselves in society and how we put out an image of ourselves, it's exactly and precisely the way the children are going to imitate and emulate us. So the madrasa plays their part, the school plays its part, but we as parents play a bigger role and we are the bigger teachers rather than the teachers at the school and at the madrasa.
Now, if I can just cut you off here for a bit, Nishat, you mentioned about children imitating their parents. Muhammad Abbas, I want to ask you as a youth who's been growing up in this century, of course, what do you feel? Do you feel with your experience and your friendship? Do you think that the youth are imitating their parents these days, or are they imitating their friend circle more?
So to a certain level, they do imitate their parents and they also imitate their friends. Because if you think about it, because sometimes they, as you mentioned, they don't get to spend that much time with their parents because their parents are at work or other places, then they end up spending time with their friends, and then it in the end becomes a contributing factor to their behavior later on. That's
So
what I think.
where do you think the pull is mostly? If you were to weigh it on a weighing scale, where do you think the more imitation occurs?
So
This is just
it all depends on the first few years of upbringing. That's what I think, because they tend to spend more time obviously with their parents from a younger age. Then they get friends once they start going to school, getting out of the house and everything. So it all depends on the first few years of their upbringing.
the first few years. So the first 7 years when they are the king of the
Yes,
right before the
yes,
next.
yes.
Malana Saib, what do you want to add to that in terms of the upbringing today?
Actually, in my view, parents, they always have a very big impact on upbringing of the children. Doesn't matter it is very early age or a bit later. Because a parent, they're supposed to be role model for their children uh, at all the age. And that is why the bigger responsibility is on the parent. Of course, parent, when the children, they are big or they are quite young, uh, so in this case, they become a little bit away, but still parent, they can be role model for their children.
Okay. I just wanted to remind our viewers for tonight that if you do have any questions, the number is country code 254-702-100-130. Please feel free to send in your questions as we continue on tonight's program. Nishat, let me get to the more difficult part of this program now. We know that parents are an integral part of our youth today. Okay, we do know that. But there is a trend that has been happening for the past 10 years, whereby we might find the youth engrossed in social media. Their influences from different parts of the world is very strong. And guess what? We actually see it today. What are your thoughts on what social media is actually doing or coming in between parenting and children today?
Okay, if I may slightly open up this discussion before I go into answering that particular point that you've just asked. If we are able to divide our challenges into three segments, okay, so the first segment would be the environmental challenge. So the environmental challenge is, for example, peer pressure, and peer pressure is both ways. Parental peer pressure. Uh, when I say parental peer pressure, is parents having peer pressure with their peers as well in emulating and copying what children do. Peer pressure amongst kids themselves. Uh, the imitation part. Okay, so environmentally we are programmed to imitate one another. If I am doing something, somebody else will say I need to do that as well. We are in this mode of competition. If one person is doing something, the other one feels I should be doing it as well. So it's more of a competition game. Comparing, so parents tend to compare their kids with other kids. If this guy can do it, why can't you do it, sort of a thing. So those are classified as environmental challenges. Cultural challenges. Okay, so the cultural challenges is when we say what people will say, what will people think. If I don't know how to recite Quran, or my son doesn't know how to recite, what are people going to say? What are people going to think? So it is more about people, what people think and what people feel, and how we are going to fit into that society, rather than what is right for us and what is appropriate for us, is more challenging to us. And the third is societal challenges. Now, this is where what you've just asked, the lifestyle that we live is based upon certain systems. So, for example, if you look at the education system, for example, so you need to go to school at the age of 3, you need to do something by the age of 10, you need to finish your O levels by the age of 18. It is how we have been programmed in the society over the period of years, that this is a set of rules that you have to follow. Once a week you need to go to madrasa, once a week you need to go and see a malim, occasionally you need to play sports. So it's all a programmed society that we live in based on these kind of challenges that we have, and we have all been through it. And maybe we are seeing this now because social media plays a bigger role in everything that we do. Now, so having said all that, these challenges are going to live with us, and we are not going to be, we are, they are not just going to disappear. It's how we as individuals, individual parents, individual families, individual children, sit and discuss these matters amongst ourselves and say, okay, this is the kind of lifestyle that we want to live. If we are going to, for example, not learn Quran, I'm just giving an example because this is something that is there. If I'm not going to learn Quran until the age of 5, it's okay. I don't need to learn at the age of 2. You know, if I'm not going to be able to play sports, for example, by the age of 7, it's okay. I will do something else by the age of 7. So we as individual families or individual parents need to discuss this as a lifestyle and for us. Media, I mean, today the world is progressing within
Nishant,
that direction.
sorry
Yes.
to interrupt. The past 30 seconds, I think you broke off. So could you just go rewind 30 seconds, please, and continue?
Wow. Okay. So 30 seconds. Was I talking about the challenges then?
You just finished about challenges and you were carrying on.
Oh, okay. So basically, what I'm saying is that, sorry?
Societal challenges.
So you could hear the societal challenges that I brought about.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. So my next point was that these challenges are going to live with us, whether we like it or we don't like it, whether we are against social media or for social media. Social media is going to stay, it's even going to evolve, it's going to get further. I mean, Muhammad Abbas is doing IT, he will tell us better that how social media, and we are seeing this now in the COVID era, that how technology is playing a bigger part, and social media is part of that bigger role as well. And businesses are all on social media. People are on social media. So how can we, as individual families, what do we need is what we need to discuss amongst ourselves. Where are we
Okay.
heading as individual people?
Those are very good points you brought up. Environmental challenges, cultural challenges, societal challenges. Mohammed Abbas, I have a question for you actually, but before I go there, Maulana Saib, um, there are a lot of hadith as far as parenting is concerned, and all of these apply today. One of the questions that I want to ask is that, the first 7 years, the next 7 years, and then the third group of 7 years, which the Prophet has mentioned in the hadith. Do you think realistically, um, can this, I mean, it is a hadith that should be applied, but in the society we live, is this something that can still be applied and nurtured by parents when we divide it into up to the age of 21?
Yes, of course. It all depends on the parent, how they want to upbring their children. Do you really want to upbring Islamically or not? Do we prefer Islam more than our culture or more than our society and environment? So it all based, on the parent. So first of all, the parent, they have to decide what nurturing or upbringing they want to provide to their children. So if it is, of course, Islamic uh, upbringing, then the term of hadith comes, and then the teachings of Islam would come. Of course, there are challenges of, as Nishad Bhai has mentioned, environmental challenges and cultural challenges and societal challenges are there. Of course, they are there. But before we go ahead, first of all, when it comes to the environment is not created by anybody else but us. So we have to change the environment. Secondly, culture is also made up by human being and by us. So we should not be influenced by culture. We should influence into the culture. And same like society. Society is also made by us. So if we are ready to face all these three, so we have to face ourselves. Huh? And then when it comes to the children, of course, these things would not remain the challenge for all of us.
Thank you for elaborating, Maulana Saib. Um, Mohammed Abbas, I have a question for you. Seeing how, you in the past decade, when I've seen you growing up here in Mombasa, we have a question from a youth who is asking, how do you cope with peer pressure while being away from your hometown? Example, being at uni all alone with different friends from different backgrounds, and you just went in the past year. And considering how you grew up here, what are your thoughts on that?
So peer pressure is it's there without a doubt, and it does affect everyone. Even myself, it has affected me quite a few times. But it all depends on the way you grow up and the way your parents make you steadfast in your religion and in every other thing, in your values. It all depends on you personally as a person, and that's the only way you can cope with the peer pressure. I'm not saying that you will not you'll be 100% perfect. It's not going to be 100% perfect. It's always is always going to be a little bit of up and down, but it's all within yourself. You should know where to draw the line and whether or not to cross the line or not.
Okay, quite impressive. Nishad, do you want to add anything to that? Because you also.
So if I can first come to what Molana said about the first 7 years of the child. You see, there is a tendency that we try to box too many things within that first 7 year. So we say within the first 7 years we try to push the kids to do so many things. We don't allow them to be who they are. We don't allow them to explore themselves, because in those first 7 years we are observant and we are watching very carefully about their behavior. We can see patterns. We can see what they like, what they dislike, what kind of a personality they have, what kind of a learning intuition they would prefer. So if we were to focus on those first 7 years and uh, you know, let them be who they are, build themselves who they are, we will actually be leading that Islamic lifestyle that Molana has just brought about. But unfortunately, as Molana rightly said, that it is we who create that society, it is we who create that environment, and that environment that we have created is telling us within the first 7 years, do as much as you can, and no, we basically lose out the kids on that particular aspect. Coming to the area of peer pressure, I mean, peer pressure is going to be everywhere. I mean, we had the peer pressure, our kids have peer pressure. But again, when they come back home, and if that home is a safe and a secure environment where children are free to discuss and express themselves, where they are free to open up and talk about issues, and we as parents as well. I mean, you see, there is one big factor that plays a big part, and the idea of being perfect. You see, nobody is perfect. We as grown-ups are also imperfect, and when we try to put out a picture of being perfect, that's when we lose our kids, because they now see, they try to put out a picture of being perfect themselves. But when we create an environment that, no, we are all imperfect, we are trying to achieve perfection, they will even feel confident to come and discuss issues that are disturbing them, and the peer pressure can be handled during those times.
There's one thing I want to ask, and Maulana Sahib, Nishad, please feel free uh, to interject. Mohammed Abbas, you as well, if you have any ideas. Some people are of the opinion that we send kids to school very early. Now, remember, we just talked about the first 7 years. Nishad, you were also under the impression that the first 7 years the children should be free. But when they enter school at the age of 5 or 6, there's already pressure starting from that age. And there are some parents who believe that let them not go to school up until the age of 7 and they start after that. What do you think about that as a parent yourself now that we hear this quite often?
I absolutely agree with that idea. I mean, because what happens in school is that you're boxed in an environment. You see, so for example, you will see parents complaining sometimes, teachers complaining, the kid doesn't sit in the class. He is very fidgetive, he besto nathi, bhaga bhagi kare છે. Why does he do bhaga bhagi? Because his way of learning is not to sit in one position. And the classroom environment is such that has been created by us, but it has been created by the society, it has been created by the environment, is for them to sit in one position. So unless and until we have not explored what is good for our children, I mean, we will have these struggles and we will have these challenges. And I mean, even if you allow them to be themselves during those first 7 years, you will see the likes, you will see the dislikes, you will see how they behave, what they like, what they don't like, how they like to learn. You will see people are imaginative, people are creative, people will be asking questions, inquisitive. You will observe patterns of behavior of how they want to learn. But if you box them, then you have already contained them in a particular manner, and then we label them that these children are ADHD. You know, I mean, it's easy to label them that way when we have not got another answer to it, kind of a thing.
Mulana Sahib, do you want to add anything to this as far as education is concerned?
Yes, mashallah. Today, the education system that we have in the world, alhamdulillah, they understand that up to the age of 7, children they need freedom, and they don't need any pressure. So that is why you find there are kindergarten schools and something like that. That the schools provide this type of education, and they make them free. Of course, up to the age of 7, children they need freedom, and at that time they are observing things as very severely and strongly. And if you see, we have witnessed on it that up to the age of 7, the children they learn language so quickly, even 4 or 5 languages at one time they are able to observe, and they can speak. So at this age, of course, Islam tells us they are like a king. So when Islam says they are like a king up to this age, it doesn't mean that we give them full freedom. even if they come to do some important, thing, we allow them. No, no. King means king also has a limitation, its boundary. So within that boundary, of course, they must have freedom. But if they cross the limit, we're supposed to understand them. We're supposed to teach them and try to, convince them that this is your boundary and you cannot cross the limit that is designated for a king.
Muhammad Abbas, you've been quiet for a while, but let me ask you something. Growing up in Mombasa, what did you feel in terms of being restricted, especially in your early teens, early to mid teens? Did you feel, this is on a personal level now, and in general, our environment, did you feel that there was a lot of restrictions growing up, perhaps in terms of what being a youth at that age?
Alhamdulillah, my parents did not have as much restrictions as I'd feel other parents or other very protective parents would. But as I was growing up as a teen, I had the amount of freedom that I had was enough to help me think and help me get an idea of what I want to become and what I need to do and what is right and what is wrong. So
Yeah, I think that's very important because I do know in our time, not necessarily me per se, but in our time, a lot of the youth were like, okay, you have to be a doctor, you have to be an accountant, and that was quite widespread.
yeah,
But now, alhamdulillah, things have changed. Do you want to add some more to that?
yeah. So as I was saying, it the 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 amount of restrictions you have as a youth also plays a big role, because if you're restricted, and then you can end up, once you are let loose, you'll obviously want to try everything, and you will want to see, oh, I did not do this when I was young. How is it? Let me try do it right now. How does it feel? It's all there. So me, alhamdulillah, I had my parents did not restrict me that much as to make me get crazy, some people would say. But the restrictions were, they definitely, it was there, but it also helped me realize what is right, what is wrong. It helped me in a way concentrate on school as well, help me get past the challenges in school. And also they also gave me the freedom to do what I wanted to do whenever I wanted to do it.
All right, that's quite a very in-depth analysis, especially from that's quite impressive. Um, Nishat, when it comes to giving freedom to the youth, now we are moving on to the next 7 years. And Maulana Sahib, I also want you to they say between the age of 7 and 14, we're now moving to the next stage. That's when the bulk of the Islamic teachings happen. But I find that sometimes from the age of 8 to 12, 13, we still are very lax in implementing these teachings. How important is it from the age of 8? Because we still consider them children. Let's be honest. I've heard that many times. They're still children. What do you think from the age of 8 to 14?
Actually, this is a very delicate and sensitive age, from 8 to 14, 7 year. So here, all the potential or all the power or all the strength of child is on peak, and it is like growing and blowing. So over here, if child is not guided properly, he might be lost. And that is why Islam tells us that at this age, he is like a slave. So all the time, he is in need of guidance. So that is why a parent, they are told to, be so serious about their children at this age, because he is about to become Bali. He's about to reach a age of puberty and age of responsibility. So, and this is the time of where the child has to be constructed. So this time, it is very delicate time. So parent, they should come forward and be serious about his child.
Nishat, would you like to add anything to that?
Okay, so what I would like to add is in addition to what the Molana said, is that this is also the age where the child is now trying to get his own identity. He's going into a teenage mode, and he is now trying to find himself who exactly he is, and he's building that image and he's building that personality for himself. At this stage, there has to be a very a delicate balance between how much you control and how much you allow freedom, because it is a tipping point. There is actually a tipping point, because if you if you control too much and you restrict too much, then it, two things can either happen. What Muhammad Abbas said, he could go into some very off tension bad habits, or he could go into a mode of low self-esteem, and he could go into a depressive mode, because one of the biggest challenges that kids at that age face is low self-esteem. Because one, if there is undue burden and expectation and pressure put on these children to achieve something, to get good grades and get good marks and do this and that, you will we will end they end up in this mode of becoming low self-esteem, because these are not their expectation. This is not who they are. This is not who they want to be. But it is an expectation that the parents have now put onto them, and they are not able to meet those expectations. So a very delicate balance has to be maintained here.
If I
And yes,
if I can interject with what you just said before you carry on,
yes,
do you feel school, secular education, has a lot of role to play in terms of putting pressure on kids? Because right now it's exams and tests. Uh,
absolutely.
do you think they should change the modality of teaching our kids at that age in school?
Absolutely. I mean, that is given. I mean, with the way the education system is now shaping up, and the awareness level that is going higher and higher, we cannot be. Everything in this world has evolved. Even the way we are doing this particular session has evolved, but the education system has not evolved, and it has stayed within that same ambit, and that needs to evolve as well, because as I said earlier, different children learn in different ways. And when like for a very simple example, in the tests and in the exams, you will have people who have who normally pass are the same people who will get the same high grades. But what happens to the lower end of the people? You are trying to push a cart that cannot move to that level. So what about them? Where do they move on to? They have certain talents, they have certain skills, but the education system is not exploring those skills of them. So this is a very fine age where things have to be balanced, and understanding their psychological needs is very important, because you either make or break anybody here. And if anybody goes into this mode of low self-esteem, into depression, we will lose them totally. We lose them completely. And I think that has to be very delicately handled.
Um, Mahmoud
Here,
Abbas,
can I add something?
yes, please, Malana, yes.
Yes. When Islam says that at this age the child is like a slave, so it doesn't mean that we have to put unnecessary burden or bring unnecessary pressure on the child, because we have to look at how Islam treat the slave. So Islam never ever put unnecessary burden even on a slave. There are some etiquette and there are some ruling how to handle a slave and how to behave with the slave. So the same way, when it comes to the child, and we are treating him like a slave, so it doesn't mean that we are treating him like an animal. Huh? So we are treating him like a human being, and the way we are told to train our slave, so same way we have to train our child. And but the meaning of it, we have to put mm, our eyes on the child, because at this age, child, he has a lot of way to be distracted from his right path. So the meaning of slave, it doesn't mean that we have to put unnecessary burden or necessary pressure bring to him. So slave means that we have to put our eyes on our child and give him maximum guidance. And because at this age, his grasping power is more than any other ages.
Uh, Thank you for that, Maulana. Muhammad Abbas, I wanted to ask you in regards to school when it comes to the age of 8 to 14. Did you feel a lot of a lot of pressure yourself when it came to the school life? Let's just move from parenting into school to get an understanding. How did you feel when you were in high school?
When I was in high school, um, I mean, it's the same whether you're in high school or even after high school. So I'm just going to give you my experience. So I personally, I used to be, uh, I wouldn't like to brag and say it's a top level achiever, but I was on the top half of my class. And I used to, um, as well as I used to study and all, it used to be a bit easy for me during class. I used to pass my exams, everything. So my parents already, I think so, it's set in their mind that Maudwas can do well. He's a bright student. So from then onwards, I think they kept thinking that I will pass, I will pass, I will pass, I will pass. So when it comes to the higher, now as you go higher in level of education, it becomes harder, it becomes harder, it becomes harder. And they relaxed the rules, or they relaxed how they kept their thought of me. So they told me, you don't need to be a top achiever anymore. As long as you pass the subjects, as long as you get through to the next level, it's fine. That's how my experience has been towards both high school and as I'm doing right now in higher education, in doing my undergraduate course. My dad has told me, as long as you cross the line, whatever it takes, you just need to cross the line. That's it. And you are fine. That's how it is. So the pressure, other parents would say, you need to pass, you need to pass, you need to pass, you need to get an A, you need to come out with an A, whatever the case. That is not there with me. So it's fine. I'm at the moment, as much as I know I do still have the pressure being the firstborn and needing to set an example for my sister and my brother down below me. It's still relaxed compared to what other people could experience.
All right, that's quite an insight you've given us.
Can
Nishat, yes,
I
you want to
can
say
I can I
something?
just come in? So I think he has raised a very nice point about how his upbringing has been. And again, I will come back to those three challenges that I said earlier: the cultural, the environmental, and the societal. And 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 this is to all parents, because this is how culturally or how the society perceives. The society perceives if you have got good grades, you are a top student. Society perceives if you have got a bachelor's, a master's, or a PhD, you are a bright kid. But somebody who has, for example, empathy and compassion for human beings will not be seen as a top achiever. Yet that is something majorly required in this world today, because we lack emotional intelligence, we lack people with compassion. And that is why today, when we are seeing this in the COVID era, what are we seeing? People are laid off, people's salaries are being cut, jobs are being lost. Why? I mean, all these years, these same people have served the same people, and when the days were good, you big companies earned out of these people, and today when times are bad, you lay them off, you cut off their salary. Where's the compassion gone? So what did education at the end of the day teach people? Nothing. So we never peg success, we never peg achievement, we never peg goodness to these kind of things. We only peg it to grades, we only peg it to results, we only peg it to degrees and certificates that in real world have value, but other things have bigger value as well. And that's what we as parents need to understand. And a simple example, if I were to highlight, is this peg. Do you see this peg? It's a square peg. This square peg will only fit into a square hole. If you fit it into a round hole, it's going to break. And we need to understand this, that every individual is unique in his own way. That's what we as parents need to understand. Our children are unique in their own way. They have their own talents, they have their own ideas, they have their own skills. Nurture those talents, nurture those skills, rather than boxing them up into something and causing a mayhem and a chaos of their lives later on.
I see. just in the past couple of minutes that you've been speaking, Nishad, I see you're very passionate about this topic, and I see a reflection of your father in you, you know, and that's just brilliant and amazing. I have a question, Maulana Saib. Um, Somebody has requested if you can speak on uh, bringing about bringing up girls and the restrictions to certain age, because there's always a difference between bringing up a boy versus bringing up a girl, and this is a centuries old topic that has been going on. We've heard about this, we've read about this, uh, and it happened before even. What do you think? The question is, Molana, to briefly talk about bringing up the girls and the restrictions to certain age in giving ideas in this day and age, perhaps.
Of course, um, in very beginning, we should have spoken about this, and it is a fundamental thing for upbringing of the children. You know, we have to have this thing in our mind while we are bringing our children, that our son always, boy always follow his father, and girl always follow her mother. And the first thing that is needed for upbringing, it is the character of the parent, and what is the environment of the house. Sometime even before I have spoken in one of my majlis, that what we are speaking should match with our action. Our children, they do not listen our lectures, they always copy our actions. You may have seen in your life that boys always follow their father. They always sit and they always stand, they always walk the way his father walked. And girls, same way. So the main thing is the character of the mother. And main thing for the boy is the character of the father. So first of all, we have to do correction in our character. This is number one for the upbringing of the children. Number two, while we are selecting the school is very big factor for the upbringing of the children. We have to choose the school. Today, what Nishad Bhai has said, we have a very big challenge of our society, culture, and environment, that we try to put our children in a school that is number one school in the society. Or in the country, or in whatever. So we look at the standard. We do not look at the upbringing of our children. We are following the culture. We are following the society and all that. We are not looking at the real upbringing and the real essence of nurturing children. So if we have this thing in our mind that we are upbringing our children, we are not looking at our status, we are not looking at our position, what is our position, which our child, in which school our child has to be admitted. No, we have to look at what is the essence of nurturing and upbringing the child. We should enter them, or we should admit them in appropriate school that is giving them proper environment. And third thing, of course, it is our environment. While we are, socialized, social life, meeting our friend, having relation with the families. So we must see what type of families we are meeting, what type of families we are having relationship. This thing also affect on the upbringing of the children.
Sahib, do you? I read this long time ago, and Muhammad Abbas, this applies to your age as well. Maulana Sahib, I read this long time ago that parents become parents before they are even married.
Very good, beautiful.
And that means before you even attain or you are married, your akhlaq, your spiritual self is something that will transfer to the child after you get married. Can you briefly, for a couple of minutes, elaborate on that, please?
Yeah. The factor that I have given you for the upbringing of the children, it is our obvious factor. There are some factors, we call them you find these factors in the Islamic books are called hidden factor for upbringing of the children. So what are the hidden factors? Before you get married, So what we have to do, you should find a mother for your child, not a wife for yourself. So this is very important, that you are looking for a mother for your child. So there was a lady who went to one of our marja, and she was holding a child who was only 6 months old. So she asked from the marja, how can I bring my children? Can you give us some advice? So he said to her that you are very late. You should have come to me before you get even married. So, of course, before getting married, you should prepare yourself for upcoming the child. So, when you get married, first of all, you have to find that you are looking for the mother, not for a wife. Secondly, of course, it comes to the family. We have a hadith of our 60th Imam Ja'far as-Sadiq alayhi salatu salam, that the mother or the father, whatever they have in their race, it comes even in the child. We had a beautiful what you call segment of the Masoom. Even if you have a mole on the face of you, so it is not from you. It is from the race you are coming from. And we have seen this thing at the time of Siffin, when Muhammad Hanafiya has gone for the battlefield and he comes back. So what Amir al-Mu'minin said, that it is not your mistake. It is the mistake of your gene. So the second factor that has been mentioned by our ulama, that is a hidden factor for upbringing of the child. It is a race, what you are looking. However, we should not discuss all that. The ma'yar and the criteria is taqwa. Taqwa is more what you call strong than the race, but still race, it does effect in the child. So there are a long discussion for this. However, I have given you very brief.
Uh, Thank you, Maulana Saib. I have two questions here. It is 10 o'clock, but we'll extend it by a few minutes because we were late. I have two questions in line. One is for Nishat, one is for Muhammad Abbas. Nishat, compare madrasa, your time, and when we were attending 6 days a week, okay? And compare it with today's time, which is approximately one time a week. Um, the question is justice being done in our teachings, or the kids are missing out on a lot? Today, many parents don't have time for their kids like we used to have. We feel kids are losing a lot on religious education.
You see, when we say a lot is subjective. You know, uh, if we were to quantify a lot, to me, a lot could be something else. To you, Molana, could be something else. To the person who asked the question, could be something else. Again, it is how much information do you want to feed the child and for him to regurgitate it out? Is that the aim? Or is the aim to get knowledge imparted to the child so that he becomes a practicing Muslim or a practicing human being? So these are things that we need to define, that what is a lot. I mean, I could be in madrasa for 6 days, and we have been there, Nazir. I've been there, and I know the kind of funny things that we have done in madrasa and how much we have learned uh, in 6 days. So we might have not learned anything, and in one day somebody could have learned a lot. So it depends on what is learning to the person. Is it, and it can be subjective from person to person.
Nishat, I don't know about you. The funniest thing I've done is probably we've just been eating sunflower seeds and throwing the things in the classroom. That's what I remember quite well.
And there are other censored things that I would rather not say
Let's
here.
not go into that right now. Um, Speaking of our kids growing up, I grew up personally um, in a school that spoke English. Now we are coming to a slightly different topic, and you know where I'm coming with this. But I learned Urdu and Kutchi and Gujarati listening to my parents at home, Urdu at the mosque. Now, one question that somebody is asking you, Muhammad Abbas, and just be free and open, please. Um, what would you prefer in today's time? And please, let's not go too detailed into this, but we are just going off track. Mother tongue or English? Are you and your age mates suffering when it comes to majlises and lectures that we have in our centers?
I for certain cannot say anything for my friends, but I can tell you for myself. Um, I speak English. My Kiswahili is a bit broken, but I do speak Gujarati and I understand Urdu. I can't speak it, but I understand it. So when it comes to lectures, because I grew up in the environment of Urdu lectures, like the way you said, that's how I grasped Urdu, just the understanding of it. Speaking is a bit difficult for me, but I feel like because kids nowadays are surrounded with everything to do English, even some grandparents speak English nowadays. So most mobile they use mobile devices on a regular basis. They use their iPads on a regular basis. It's all in English. I feel like everyone would be accustomed to speaking English. So for me, I don't mind any of the two languages, either if it's mother tongue or English, because I understand and speak both. For many youth nowadays, it would be English.
Okay. I think the message has been received by the one who asked the question. And although this was something to do with the cultural topic we did about 8 weeks ago, if you remember. But thank you for clarifying, Muhammad Abbas. I do appreciate it. It is now 10:04. I guess we have no more questions coming in. Is there anything you want to end with before we end the session for tonight? I will ask Maulana Saab at the very end, but first I want to ask you, Nishat, anything you'd like to?
So, just to summarize, there is something beautiful that I have always read, and every time I read it, it goes deeper and deeper, and it opens up many different horizons. And if you don't mind, I will take a minute to just read it out to you. It is a poem. You can't say a poem, but it's a piece of writing by a very famous poet, come writer, come philosopher by the name Khalil Gibran. He was a Lebanese American person, and he writes this about children. Um, he says, "Your children are not your children. They are sons and daughters of life's longing for itself. They come through you. They come through you, but not from you. And though they are with you, they belong not to you. You may give them your love, but not your thoughts, for they have their own thoughts. You may house their bodies, but not their souls, for their souls dwell in houses of tomorrow, which you cannot visit, not even in your dreams. You may strive to be like them, but seek not to make them like you, for life does for life goes not backwards nor tarries with yesterday." So these are just a few extracts that I've pulled out. Basically, what Khalil Gibran is trying to say from this piece of writing is that though children come from us, they are not really from us. They have their own thoughts, they have their own minds, and we need to see them. We need to understand these children. And one of the most important things that we need to understand, and if we want to nurture good children and bring them up in a good environment, it is we need to know their language of love. What is their language of love? Because when we know their language of love, we will connect with them. And I think the biggest thing that is missing, the missing link, is the connection between the parents and the children in today's time. And we need to find that through the language of love.
You you've left me speechless, but that was very deep and insightful, Nishat. Thank you for that. Muhammad Abbas, any parting words before we cut off for the evening?
So Nishat uncle has said what needs to be said.
Okay, sorry, there was a bit of a break, so I was waiting for that. Apologies about that. Muhammad Abbas, thank you so much for being a part of this. Maulana Saib, Any parting words for our viewers?
Okay, inshallah. So before we end, one of the points that I want to raise over here is a very important point, and nowadays we witness it, and it is about the depression of the child. Sometimes you find many child they go under depression. So we have to, be worried about this situation, and this situation for the child is very tough and very difficult, and nowadays it becoming very common. So for depression of the child, what I felt, it is one of the factor for it. It is a, communication gap between the child and the parent. Parent, they're supposed to be, in touch with the child. Second thing, it is the showing their love. Most of the time, father, especially father, not mother, especially father, he's not able to show his love to his child. So this is very important that the father has to show his love, and that is why we are told in the hadith of Ahlul Bayt that even loving and the kissing of your child, it has a lot of sawab. So the meaning of sawab over here, it doesn't mean that you are going to you will do it like the way you do the salat and all that. No, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has put a lot of benefit in loving your child and kissing your child. So you means you have to show your compassion, your love to your child and attachment to your child. So this thing, it is strength. It gives strength to your child, and it gives confidence to your child. And third thing, why child goes into depression, it is a problem of husband and wife. This thing is very common in our community, and it really, really affect, and it gives very bad impact on our children. So this thing has to be considered while we are bringing our children. So that's it. However, there are a lot of things to be discussed, but inshallah, it's sufficient on it. وآخر دعوانا الحمد لله رب العالمين.
If I can just add something to what Maulana said, Nazir.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, the part where he talked about showing affection and kissing the children. Normally it is common tendency that we feel that we need to have the affection and kissing and hugging for only young children when they're young, and not when they grow old. In fact, it is more the other way around. They need that more as they are growing up than when they are young, because when they are growing up, they need to feel you with them. They need to feel you close to them. And I think that's something that we should all be very vigilant about.
Yes, very true, Nishad.
Thank you. I think we ended on a lovely note. No pun intended. And I want to thank you again, Maulana Sahib, inshallah, for being on the panelist for tonight. Muhammad Abbas, your first time here. It was a pleasure having you with us, and I hope we can see you in future programs, inshallah.
It was a pleasure likewise. Inshallah, let us hope.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Asante.
Our audiences as well. We look forward in the next couple of weeks to have our 6th episode of The Inner Voice. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum salam.